In the meantime, while we're waiting for, I guess, people to log in, do you guys want to go over introductions? We can take turns introducing ourselves, and we'll kick it off with a Q&A in the format. Um, let's see, on my screen, the first person I have is Daniel Ortega. If you want to go introduce yourself.
Hi there, I am Daniel Ortega, PGY3 at the University of Cincinnati. I am also the SAEM RAMS Secretary Treasurer on the Executive Committee or Executive Board, sorry. And it's a real pleasure to be a part of the panel today.
Thanks for joining us, Daniel. Next person I have up is Daniel again. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Daniel Jordan, fifth year EMIM at Henry Ford in Detroit. And then I am the immediate past Rams president, as well as the resident member to the SAEM board. And I like mint chocolate chip ice cream.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for joining us as well. Taylor, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Brown. I'm a medical education fellow currently at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, where I just completed my emergency medicine residency. I'm also an attending physician there as well. I just served for the past 2 years on the Rams board as a member at large, and I'm with Daniel on the mint chocolate chip.
Thank you for joining us. Juana, can you please introduce yourself as well to our team?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Juana Vasquez. I am the staff liaison to the Rams board. I have been for the past almost 3 years, and I'm going to go with my favorite ice cream is strawberry cheesecake.
Nice choice. A little different. I like it. And Dawood, I'm not sure if you're still there or not, but if you are, feel free to introduce yourself, and then I'll take it away.
Yes, my name is Dawood Lawson. I generally go by DM, my initials. There's a story because I used to work in banking, and I know everyone that was wealthy used the initial. So I said, if I use 2 initials, then I'm going to have a whole lot of money. I am the IT support for SAEM.
Thank you for making this happen. Really appreciate you. I am Hamza Ejaz. I am currently finishing up an admin fellowship at Cornell, New York Presbyterian, and I have been in a different number, quite a few roles within SAEM Rams and within the board. Have formerly served as the Rams president, and will be serving as the moderator for this next few moments, I would say here. So the goal for our conversation today is to talk about the different opportunities that are present within SAEM and Rams in regards to mentorship and how you can gain mentorship opportunities. And once you are a mentor, a mentee, how can you go about making the most of those opportunities, and then what are some of the best practices? So the format for this webinar will largely just be Q&A. So for the people who are logged on, feel free to type out your questions, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question away at any point in time. Relatively informal. So our goal is to hopefully maybe foster some mentorship opportunities just through this webinar itself, but if not, at least to allow you to learn more about what opportunities exist within SAEM Rams for mentorship. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and just kick it off with to our panel. Thank you guys for joining us. And my first question is, why is the concept of mentorship, or why is the fact, a mentor-mentee relationship particularly important in academic medicine and academic emergency medicine? And then feel free to anyone who wants to take that.
I think for myself, mentorship was a huge way to even figure out what opportunities were available to me. It was a mentor of mine who even mentioned applying to the Rams board, nominated me, and encouraged me to join. So I wouldn't have even known about that opportunity. And I continue through mentors to find out about opportunities such as grants. And I find that it's a great way to, when you find out the opportunities that are available, also ask people what's coming down the pipeline next. So for the next stage in your career, a mentor that's already been through that can always look back and give you advice for those next steps.
For me, I was really thinking about like what is a mentor, in general, because there is this graduated model that tends to happen in different residencies when you as you become more senior and become more experienced in the field. But I think a mentor is particularly different because their focus is more support, whether it's knowledge, social capital for your career or personal development. And some of the reasons I think it's the most important, there is literature on this that like those mentoring relationships do lead to higher income, more promotions, better career satisfaction, decreased burnout. In our field specifically, there have been studies that show there's more academic productivity as well because you can focus on projects more. There's a giant basket of projects that they can hand you. Better commitment to an organization. You're more interconnected. Having a mentor is just leads to many benefits in your career. So I think it's one of the most effective things that you can do for your own personal development as well. Like it's not just limited to the career aspect. I think that's how we often think about it. But being in medicine, it is very all encompassing, and having someone who can help you out to navigate not just career but personal difficulties is really important.
Yeah, I don't have any literature to quote, so I'll just let what Dr. Artiga said stand.
No, I love that. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Artiga, for sharing that literature. I mean, that's amazing to do some of that information there. The interesting thing is, with research, sorry, with mentorship, and some of the research you were quoting early on in your career in academic medicine, like you might have one mentor who wears many hats, and then I think as you evolve and grow within your own skill set and your own professional development, you'll come to realize that you might actually have quite a few different mentors who provide you with resources and provide you with mentorship through different lenses. So you might have potentially a clinical mentor, you might have a research mentor, you might have a professional development leadership mentor, you might have someone from a personal mentorship perspective. So there's a concept of a board of mentors as well. So it's important that when you're thinking about, okay, early on you might have one that does a lot of things for you, and then as you get further on in your training and in your careers, you might actually have quite a few different mentors for different aspects of what you might need help with. So it's really important that for your professional growth, personal growth, and some of the benefits that Dr. Artiga was referring to, it's really important to seek out mentorship opportunities. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually transition to our next question, and this will be for each of the panelists here. If you don't mind, please describing what your personal mentorship journeys have been through SAEM RAMS. Like, where did you guys go to seek out your mentors within SAEM? And if you don't mind elaborating on those.
Yeah, I'll go first. The first mentor I had, she was involved in SAM quite a while ago when I got started on my role, and it was at the same time that RAMS actually was being initiated. She was at my medical school, and she, prompted me to apply. I actually lost the first election, but she encouraged me to get involved with committees and then again to run again for a position on the board. But I left that medical school. I still have a relationship with her, but she's not as much my mentor anymore. From that point, I turned towards a lot of the executive members, to include Hans himself, as my mentors. How did they get in the positions they were in, and what kind of recommendations they would have to get more involved. And then we also have an excellent program we'll talk about, but there's mentors on the actual SAM board that we work with who also help, but not only within SAM. They provide just general life guidance. These are people who are chairs or very high up within academic programs, but at different institutes than the one we are at. And so they're able to provide insight and like, these are the things we view as important. These are the places, if you're trying to get where you're trying to go, that you could focus on. So I found it extremely helpful. The biggest thing, obviously, is just the variety and access to such a numerous amount of potential mentors. I think that's the big thing within SAM itself.
I'd say for myself, my mentorship journey within SAM, there was a lot of growth. I'm someone that finds it very hard to maintain my mentorship relationships without being very intentional. So I thought it was great that as a board member, there were some formal relationships that were set up for me, and there was some guidance and instruction on actually how to grow and maintain those relationships. And I learned a lot from that process. So I learned things like, kind of setting calendar reminders for myself, preparing for my meetings with those mentors, because they're typically folks more senior than myself. And then I also, as I got more involved in the organization itself, and I have my own academic interests, I found that it was really rewarding and much easier to network and find mentors within my shared specialty. So using some of the subcommittees or using the national meeting. I know that I do medical education, and at the national meeting, there was a speed mentoring event specifically for medical education. And I went and I connected with 4 or 5 people there that I'm still sending emails to. So really tapping into the organization itself through committees or the national meeting, I found that that was a way to even grow my mentorship network further with shared interests.
My original experience first joining SAEM RAMS was through the person who would eventually become the AEUS president, Dr. Teresa Liu, walked me through, like, she heard a lot of my concerns for emergency medicine. This was around the time that the workforce report came out, and there's been a lot of work that SAEM has already done on that, and we have a task force. But I was very concerned initially, like with my interest in emergency medicine and hearing all my concerns, like still being passionate for the field and career and the academics in general. She was like, "Oh, you should join this very large organization who's like just as interested as you are in these things." And after becoming a part of the board, meeting people like Daniel Jordan, Taylor, Hamza, who've similarly have kind of led the way for me, who was new to the organization, not as familiar. Um, it's a breeding ground for people who are all interested in the same things and all have the same motivations as you. So just being a part of the organization is great. But then once you find, as mentioned earlier, like the interest groups, the committees who like you find the niche within the niche of people who care just as much as you. You not only have collaborators, but you have mentors for life, because they're at every one of these levels, there's a mentor at a higher level than you who's going to be motivated to help you. And it's not just for your personal betterment, but like the betterment of the field. So she originally got me in. I've discovered more. And as Taylor and Daniel have said, there is this formal mentorship program that they foster within RAMS board as well with SAEM that has led to really good moments and new mentoring relationships I wouldn't have had before.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's really important that you find that, like, you put your foot in the door for whatever that niche is within academic EM and SAEM. And whether that's an interest group, whether that's a committee, just starting somewhere. I think finding that first connection is often some of the most daunting part of finding a mentor. But I think if you set out with the idea, you know what, let me just meet one person, and then see where that opportunity leads itself to, and then just being intentional about it, like, hey, you know what, being clearly defining what your goals are, defining this is what I hope to gain, or this is what I'm hoping to get guidance on, and then subsequently proceeding with that ask as you have these conversations. And then after that, the rest of that kind of happens organically. You guys have started to already pull, segue to another question that I had in mind. So I'm going to pull on that thread a little bit more. So you guys have mentioned some formal opportunities that exist within our organization for mentorship. Do you guys mind? There's the speed mentoring event that Taylor you were referring to. There's the board mentorship as well. Can you guys elaborate on each of those and what you guys have discovered about the experiences through them?
So I think every academy and group has kind of done it a little differently. And I think it depends on the level of training too, as RAMS members. Like, we're really seeking a lot of mentorship into our academic niche and as a researcher possibly as well. AEUS, Simulation Academy, these have like mentorship processes to like help you get grants, for example. And if you're not particularly interested in that, the SAEM RAMS board, if you're interested in ops and admin, like you end up working with a lot of individuals who are in that space as well. So not just seeking it within the organization broadly, but like I think we one of SAEM's benefits is just the number of academies we have, so that you can actually, one of the things that people really focus on in academic EM is finding your niche, and after you find the niche, finding the personalities and being able to find a good mentor who can share those personal insights and experiences, who makes themselves accessible and an effective listener. I think you start by finding the committee you're interested in.
The speed mentoring is pretty cool. We do that every year at SAM, the annual meeting. And you literally just sign up, and then we reach out to a bunch of people, chairs, committee leaders in specific areas, and develop a list of faculty who are interested in willing to be mentors. And then it's exactly what it sounds like. Everybody sits down. I don't remember the exact time that you sit with them. It's like 10, 15 minutes, something to that effect. And it allows you the opportunity to explain who you are. They can explain who they are, and you can kind of try to determine whether the mentoring that person that you're sitting with is someone who you would be interested in acting as a mentor. Say you're interested in operations and they're an ultrasound person, maybe they're not, who you're jiving with, but the goal is that by having you meet a bunch of different potential mentors from other institutes, you'll be exposed and potentially find someone who you can develop that kind of mentor-mentee relationship with outside your institute.
I think, when I did the speed mentoring event, I was asking folks about kind of questions about career trajectory. They introduced everyone by title at the beginning. So I sat down with a few folks who had a job title that I thought I would be interested in as a step in my career, and then kind of helped them. They had them talk me through how they got from my position to theirs. It was also great for networking because I'm in education and will, at the end of fellowship, be looking for an academic job. The interest groups and committees have been mentioned several times. There's a little nuance in the difference between them. It looks like we just dropped a link in the chat to all the different interest groups. I think that's really the key to getting a lot out of your SAEM experience. There are faculty in each of these groups working on projects. They are happy to pass over leadership, get you involved. I know I was on a committee and I expressed some interest, and I ended up leading projects with folks from the committee. So I really think they're a great place to get started, to look for involvement in projects, informal and formal mentoring.
Yeah, thank you everyone for highlighting some of those opportunities within the organization. A couple of the other ones that that come to mind that are particularly, I think, helpful for medical students is the medical student ambassador program. So during any of the 4 years of your medical school, you can apply to be a medical student ambassador, and you'll basically serve as the ambassador or as one of the ambassadors during the annual meeting in May. You're there for the whole week, and I think your registration is waived. So that's really helpful. And then what essentially we do as part of that is we pair you with essentially almost a program faculty mentor as well, based on whatever you have described as your interests. Then we find a program committee member to serve as your mentor. And then we have a conversation with them during the course of SAEM. And if you guys hit it off, you guys are more than welcome to keep that conversation going over the course of the year. So a lot of medical student ambassadors have actually found that to be really helpful. And they've found, help with crafting their personal statement, looking over residency applications to figure out where to apply, get help in terms of potentially getting them an interview, seeing if they can put in a good word. There's a lot of ways that, that opportunity can be helpful as well. So that's one formal approach that we have for pairing medical students with mentors. Another one is more so, I think, once you're part of the leadership team here within SAEM RAMS, once you're part of the board, we have recently started with Daniel Jordan here's help here with a old board and a new board mentorship program to help onboard some of the newer SAEM RAMS board members. So there's a way that we kind of ease that transition into a board if you've never served on the board before. And then for the entire RAMS board, we also pair them with an SAEM board member as well to have conversations about what you might be looking for depending on personal growth within SAEM, more organized medicine and leadership opportunities, or looking about, soul searching about career opportunities as well post residency and or fellowship. There's a lot of ways that within SAEM, as well as the numerous interest groups and committees that the panel here has been referring to that are possible, that can get your foot in the door. I'll pause here briefly. Does anyone here have any questions amongst the audience that they want to either type out in the chat or unmute? And if not, I've got some other questions as well. All right, thank you for this question. Is it pronounced Hazefa? Sounds like the question is, you are a fourth-year medical student in Pakistan. How do you go about securing an elective in the United States? Anyone want to take a lead on that?
I haven't personally had to encounter that, but we do have affiliations with some overseas programs. And so I think oftentimes your best bet is figuring out who your medical school has potential affiliations with in the United States, as well as where previous applicants potentially went and can talk about you in a manner that potentially could secure you a spot. But beyond that, I don't know that I have any great advice.
Yeah, as from what I understand, as I know Jordan mentioned, typically, depending on your school, like there might be a relatively uncomplicated process where you have an affiliation with the U.S. medical school already. But if you can't go that route, it can be a little more complicated and competitive. You can look into I think it's the VSLO programs, like visiting student opportunities. And the head of your school should be aware of this program and know if it's available to you as well. So that's where I would start. Otherwise, I'd use a good Google to look for international programs available for in the US as well.
Yeah, some of it comes down to just unfortunately doing a lot of research in terms of looking at residency websites to see their current residents, to also see, which amongst those residents went to medical school within US versus internationally, and seeing, hey, if there's a cohort of international graduates at that particular residency, potentially reaching out to the clerkship coordinators within that school or within that residency or program director there, and then reaching out to them, expressing your interest and why you're interested in that particular program. And that might be another way to seek out a way to get involved with an elective. Another way could be definitely, attending an SAEM conference if that is potentially possible for you, is to attend the conference, meet people there, and then subsequently, sometimes that, a lot of times, if you're starting to become active in a committee, a more interest group, that might lead itself to like, okay, I can vouch for this person. We can potentially help them get into an elective at this institution or that institution. One of the other questions I wanted to pose to the panel here is, let's say now you have, now that you are essentially a mentee, you have identified a mentor, what are some best practices that you should try to abide by so that you try to make the most of the opportunity? What are some do's and don'ts of that mentee-mentor relationship?
I think one of the biggest thing is to have established goals that you can provide to your mentor. So say, these are the things that I'm attempting to achieve, whether it be I want to secure an academic position somewhere, or I want to secure an ultrasound fellowship or EMS fellowship. The other thing is, as the mentee, it's kind of on you to make sure you schedule meetings. So reach out to them and say, these are times I potentially have. Do you have an opportunity to talk? And I think if you do that, you secure your meeting time and you come with goals, that enables a much more productive meeting between the two of you, as opposed to kind of just this awkward pause and trying to figure out, and establish what's going on. So I think those two things are some of the best advice I've received regarding mentor-mentee relationships.
Part of the setting goals up too, I think, is that there has to be a lot of looking inward as well. Ahead of time, you have to know yourself quite a bit well. You need to know what you actually want to achieve from the mentoring relationship. So not just if you don't even know what goals to set out in the first place. Like, am I establishing this relationship because I want to do an ultrasound fellowship in the future and I want to be research minded, right? So identifying a good mentor in that space is the first step. And then identifying goals because you have a specific larger goal in your own mind as well. So you really have to know yourself ahead of time before you even establish a mentor. If you just get handed a mentor, oftentimes like those might not be as fruitful.
I think Daniel touched on this, really preparing for your meetings with a mentor, and then at each individual check-in, having goals for that check-in. And then when I'm concluding the meeting with a mentor, I try to summarize that meeting and have some kind of next step in place. So maybe that's, I'm going to work on some draft and send it to them for revision by a deadline, or we don't have anything active going on right now, so we're going to plan for our next check-in in 3 months. But also leaving each meeting with a mentor with some concrete and tangible next step and a timeline for that as well.
Yeah, to summarize, what I'm hearing is, sounds like do a little bit of internal soul searching to figure out what you actually want to get out of this, so you can clearly articulate what your ask is. Being proactive about your timing and schedule requests to make that happen so you can get those meetings on a particular cadence. And then once the meetings have happened, summarizing them and identifying the next steps and communicating those next steps, or whatever that clear final ask will be. Are there any potential like things to avoid to do or things not to do, sorry, to as a mentee?
Don't be afraid to ask or to say the M word. I feel like people get scared to say like, "Will you be my mentor?" You know, it's kind of awkward, but it's it has to be a very focused relationship. Like there are kind of some goals that are set up as a mentor that you don't necessarily have as like, we're just getting a coffee or going to a cafe, right? Like we kind of in describing the practices that we said you should do, you shouldn't just be going to a cafe to like catch up on how your shifts are doing with a faculty mentor, right? You should have a more focused discussion, and just keep in mind what type of relationship you're going to build. If you're unfocused, you're going to not gain much from it, and which is fine if this is just an interpersonal relationship, but then I wouldn't define it as a mentoring relationship. Empower you to use the word mentor because I do think it puts if I was asked to mentor someone, I feel like there's certain expectations and responsibilities that come with it that, I'm seeking as an academic emergency medicine provider. I want to do that for like my junior staff. So it's not something that you should be shy about. A lot of people welcome it, I found.
I think the big thing to be careful with is just be respectful. Everybody in medicine is difficult on time, and so when you establish these meetings, make sure you go to the meetings and make sure you do have something to discuss, and in that way you're just showing that you're being respectful of the fact that they are offering their time oftentimes for free to act as a mentor.
I got a great question from the audience that I want to ask you guys as well. How has having an involved mentor and having served on the Rams board helped you guys overcome imposter syndrome in your career development so far?
I don't know if anyone ever fully overcomes imposter syndrome, and I say that really to validate the feeling. I'm like stepping into a new role now, and I have a whole new set of imposter syndrome. But I think, being on the Rams board, kind of two parts to that. I guess like being a part of the Rams board showed me that even as a trainee, that I did have a place and I did have a voice within emergency medicine, as a specialty and nationally. And that opinion was actually very valuable. So that was affirming. Again, I don't think it fully erased my imposter syndrome. And then I think having great mentors can just serve as that fact check for you as well to remind you that you're qualified. For myself, a lot of my mentors have encouraged me to apply for things that maybe it was partially imposter syndrome I didn't think I was qualified for. And a lot of times they would push me to say, what's the worst that could happen? You don't get it and you apply again. So those are two ways that mentorship and imposter syndrome have overlapped for myself.
Yeah, I think it's so true that, regardless of whatever stage of training you are in or whatever stage of your career you're in, you're always going to struggle with some level of imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, I just got into this medical school, or oh my goodness, I just got into this particular residency, or I'm now a senior resident, like, am I qualified to do this? Or now I'm a fellow now, or I'm a junior faculty, or I'm a leader within my group. Like, am I qualified to be here? I'm on the Rams board. Am I qualified to, to be helping lead thousands of students or residents? And some of that is just our own sheer emotions, but a lot of that can be beneficial or can be worked through with a mentor as well, where like, hey, you know what, I'm struggling with this aspect of validating the fact that I deserve to be on this board, and having conversations with their former Rams mentor or with the SAEM board mentor really allows you to be like, hey, validate yourself. Like, hey, you deserve to be here. You have shown yourself amongst the election, amongst your resume and your work that you've done about why you should be here and how you're going to help lead the organization. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. That's, we could talk for hours about how to deal with imposter syndrome in various aspects of our careers. But that's one of the ways that mentorship can help you as well. So thank you for asking that question. That was great. I think if there's no more questions, we're going to just wrap up. So I'll pause briefly and see if there's anyone who has any more questions before we head off. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming and attending our webinar today. Thank you to the panelists for serving as panelists and sharing your wisdom and expertise. I'm sure not to throw you three under the bus, but I'm happy to take a mentor or a mentee any point in time. So if you guys have any, particular questions or looking for a mentor, I'm happy to serve as a mentor to anyone who's listening, watching or listening to this webinar. Feel free to get in touch with the SAM organization to find a way to get in touch with us. We're happy to be mentors and help you guys for whatever you guys might need. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for being on the panel. And thank you guys for organizing this as well.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.